What's going on, people? We are Tottenham TV here, back here with another video. Got a special guest today, a very special guest, Paul Robinson, aka Robbo, aka England's #1. We got Paul Robinson with us on the channel. An absolute pleasure to have you on, Paul. How are you today?
Very well, thank you. Thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure to speak to you guys.
No, it's really good to have you. What I really want to get into is I just remember the great rapport you had with the fan base, obviously growing up, sitting on the Park Lane end. And there are some really moments that really stand out for me. Obviously, that moment out in Prague when you were leading the chants with the Spurs fans, Ledley's testimonial. What made that connection with the fans so special?
I don't know, it was just an immediate rapport. I think they could see how much that I cared, how much that it mattered to me. And it was a huge move for me when I moved down from up here in Yorkshire down to London. And at the time, I was, as I say, I was still young. I think I was 23, 24, and I wasn't coming as a guaranteed #1. I think I played reasonably well in pre-season. And I just appreciated the fans' support. I used to love playing at White Hart Lane as an away team player. And it was just a special atmosphere. And I think the minute I stepped foot on White Hart Lane, I just knew that it was where I wanted to be. You know, it was the right move for me to be as a player. As I say, it was a huge move for me, but it just felt right from day one. And I appreciated the fans, and I just wanted. It's hard as a player because there's so many fans behind you. You can't go around shaking everybody's hand and saying thank you, but you can show your appreciation in other ways, which I tried to do. It cost me a few pairs of gloves, mind you.
Do you think that's something maybe disappearing a bit from the game, that kind of the connection between players and fans and that closeness that you felt and trying to get involved? Do you think that's maybe being a bit sanitized at the moment in the modern game?
Yeah, sometimes. And I think with the new stadiums as well, I think that does sanitize it a little bit. And I think you can't get close to players as you used to before. I think gone are the days where not many people will now stand by your car because your car's parked under the stadium. The security guard, you can't get anywhere near the players. You drive under the stadium, you drive out again, you drive home, which is good for the players' safety and security. But you don't have that interaction with fans unless you set up with fan meetings and things like that. Social media is another thing. When it's used correctly. It's a way of getting close to the players and talking to players and talking to your heroes, which is a good thing. But it has to be used correctly, as we know with the way things are at the moment. But I do think you're right. The interaction between players and fans is disappearing in a personal way.
I got to ask you about the goal against Watford. I just have to ask you about it. First of all, surely you meant it, right? And second of all, when it bounced over Ben Foster's head, what were you thinking?
I'd love to sit here and tell you I meant it. Well, I just think it was me, though. I didn't move very far, and it allowed the ball to bounce. It was just a lucky kick upfield, in all honesty. And at the time, I didn't know whether to celebrate because I didn't know if the referee was going to give an indirect free kick or not. Because at the time, whether it was indirect, it was obviously a massive highlight for me, and it's a huge achievement to score. But I think my goal for Leeds was more of a Roy the Rovers moment that I meant. But that goal for Spurs, I've still got everything. I've still got all the kit. I've got the boots I wore. I've got the gloves. I've got the full kit, top to bottom, and I've got the ball. Funny story about the ball. The referee actually took the match ball on the day, and I hadn't realised. And it was the kit man at the time. He went, "Oh, did you get the ball?" I went, "No, not really. I never thought of that." So anyway, went rummaging around for the match ball. Turns out that the referee had taken it home. He thought he'd have a nice little piece of memorabilia from the day. so the kit man, being the type of character he was, he got on the phone to him and he got the referee to send the ball back. So I eventually got everything back.
Yeah. Going back to what you were saying about social media, I think it's fairly interesting because obviously when you were playing, social media wasn't, well, when you were playing for Spurs anyway, social media wasn't like a prominent element to the game like it is now. But obviously that you had that moment in Croatia coming under a lot of public criticism, and obviously that's now played on a macro scale with social media. Literally every game, many players come under public criticisms. Would you say you have you know what it feels like to come under such intense public scrutiny, and maybe you could feel what a lot of players are feeling now with social media, where every game, pretty much, most players are coming under a lot of intense public scrutiny?
Yeah, I think obviously with the social media now, if social media was around the time the Croatia game, and I was on social media, I'd have got battered, absolutely hammered. I mean, I did get battered anyway, regardless of whether it was in social media. Obviously, it wasn't social media. Whether it was in the street, I had people outside my house at the gates at the time, press, journalists, and you don't expect or understand a response like that. But I think, like you're quite right, you touched on there. I think the criticism that would have come across on social media if I was on any kind of platform, that's where it's it's used very wrongly. And that's the access to players that people have, whether they want to be anonymous or not. It's still an access to players, and it's a platform for fans to give their opinion to players on how they perform. I mean, football fans nowadays, they always are, but they've been very, very knowledgeable. As working as a pundit, they don't want to see you sit there and say, "Oh, that was good. He should have done this. He should have done that." The fans know that, and they have an educated opinion nowadays. They want an inside track on what it's like and what it feels like. But the social media side of things gives fans, and obviously people who aren't fans, access to players to say what they want.
Yeah. Obviously, we've got a massive cup final in just over a week's time, the Carabao Cup final. You were our goalkeeper when we last won a trophy in 2008. And you famously won your place back in the side just before that cup final and made a great save, a really great save, to go and help us win the game on the day. But can you explain what it's like in and around the club building up to a cup final?
It was a really special time. And I think at the time, you quite rightly said, I won my place back in the side. Me and Wande Ramos weren't the best of friends at that time. And I could see that potentially, if he was going to be staying at the club long term, my time at the club was probably coming to an end, which, it disappointed me hugely. I wasn't playing well enough, obviously, to be in the side as well at the time. My form wasn't good enough. But to give something back to the fans, to put like a lid on my time at Spurs, and to be able to win a trophy, it meant so much to me. Obviously, because you said before about the rapport that I had with the fans, the relationship I had. And there was also, it'd been such a long time since the club had won something like there is now. You're talking to me, sat here at 41 years old, the last one to lift the trophy. And it was something similar when we won it. So to be able to lift the trophy at Wembley as well, and being huge underdogs and give something back to the fans after such a long time as well. Because if you remember, we weren't doing particularly well in the league at that time. Yeah. We were struggling. We were bottom half of the league. Your results weren't great, which made the achievement even bigger.
Yeah, and you could say we're not maybe as struggling as much now as we were back then, but we are similarly underdogs in this cup final as we were against Chelsea back in 2008. How did the manager approach the game before the game? What did he tell you? Did he give you confidence that you even though you're underdogs in terms of league table, in terms of ability on the pitch on the day, you could match Chelsea?
Well, completely out of character. Wande Ramos came in and it was his way or the highway. And there was a lot of players that didn't like it. And there was a lot of players that were ending up on the highway, and some had gone. And I was on the highway ready to go. And completely out of character, he took us away to a hotel a couple of days before the game. I mean, I've spoken about this before. And we were just told to pack a bag with old clothes, your suit for Wembley, and the club would take training kit, etc. And we ended up a day or a couple of nights before. It was like a stag do, but without the alcohol. We were doing dune buggy racing, archery, team bonding, like a team bonding exercise. And we were looking at each other thinking, is this a test? What's he doing? Because it was so out of character for him. And we'd go down, we went down for dinner in the hotel the night before the final. Whereas quite often with Ramos, we'd be watching video after video, meeting after meeting. He'd have a meeting to organise another meeting. And the players were like, oh. So we went down for dinner. We all sat and had dinner. And then when we finished dinner, next door, he had this fake casino there. Like the ones that you have with fake money and roulette wheels, and go and play a casino. So rather than sitting the night before a cup final up in your room, he brought everybody together, having a laugh and, playing this fake casino type thing, which again was completely out of character for him. So in a way, it was good because he knew we were underdogs. He knew he had to do something different. He took our mind away from the game.
Moving on from the final, let's talk about Hugo Lloris. I mean, how highly do you rate Hugo Lloris as a goalkeeper?
Yeah, very highly, because he's been able to do it consistently at a level for a number of years now. Hugo's had criticism at times. His form's been up and down of late. I think last season when he got injured, nobody wants to get injured, but I think his injury came at a good time for him, because I think he was really struggling with his form and his confidence. But his injury gave him an opportunity to have time out and time away from the game. Pochettino wouldn't have dropped him. I don't think he would, because of the relationship that the pair have got. It's well known that they've got a great relationship together. And I think he's come back from his injury stronger and better. I think this season, beginning of this season, he's really starting to regain his top form. And I think his longevity, been able to stay at the top for that length of time. He's the best keeper Spurs have had for a while.
Since you, Paul.
Yeah, I'd say that. I would agree. And obviously, England have a Euros in the summer, and there's kind of a bit of competition in goal in terms of who's going to be England's number one. And as a player who spent quite a bit of time as England's number one, who do you fancy going into the Euros as your number one?
at the moment, Pickford plays for me. He's done nothing wrong in the England shirt, and obviously missed the last get together because of injury. Nick Pope cemented himself as number 2, which is an interesting one because you wondered what Gareth Southgate was going to do. But now he's got another issue that Dean Henderson looks like he's been given the gloves at Manchester United. So he's got 3 goalkeepers who are doing extremely well. The international meeting before this, he came out and gave Jordan Pickford his backing, which I think was a masterstroke of man management from him, because I think since then, Pickford seems to have calmed down a little bit. His performances seem to be getting better. But he's got 2 very, very good goalkeepers. And I think, in all honesty, I think it's wide open for whoever takes the gloves in the Euros. I think Jordan Pickford is the man in possession at the moment, but I don't think he'd have to do a lot wrong for either of the other 2 to be given the nod ahead of him. And for me, it would be Nick Pope. And, even outside the top 3, they've got the likes of Sam Johnson, who's playing extremely well this season, conceding a lot of goals, but making a lot of saves. There's a lot of strength in depth, at the moment. So for me, Jordan Pickford, the man in possession, he's not going to have to do a lot wrong to lose that possession, because he's got 2 very good goalkeepers behind him.
Yeah. And finally, going to leave you on this one, but how do you think this England squad actually compares to the one you were in 2006?
I think the expectation level is getting to be similar to the one in 2006. We were obviously favourites to win the World Cup because of the quality that we had in the side. I think defensively, the squad in 2006 is stronger than the one that they've got now. You look at the centre-backs that we had, the full-backs that we had, and the 11 almost picked itself. I think probably the starting 11 in 2006 was arguably stronger, but the squad that they've got now is stronger.
All right. Look, Paul, thank you so much for coming on. It's an absolute pleasure to introduce such a great Spurs legend onto the channel. So I just want to thank you for your time, and I hope you guys out there really enjoyed watching that. So, Paul, thank you. Like, subscribe and comment. And as always, come on, you Spurs.